In English, we have this idiom, the last straw. We can say it in an even less vegan way by saying the straw that broke the camel's back. I have to start this video with the disclaimer that the last straw is not a particularly heavy straw. It's not a particularly bad straw. It just happens to be the problem that happened last in a sequence of many difficulties. Joe Vegan is not a particularly bad or terrible YouTuber. If anything, he's one of the best. And you guys know I've supported him on this channel. I supported him back when almost nobody knew about him. I supported him and offered to do a podcast with him back when my audience was much larger than his. And of course, his audience has grown and grown since then. Another general disclaimer I want to state here is something that Controvertible Snitch has stated. I can provide a link to Controvertible Snitch below this channel, although I think everyone who watches my channel already knows about him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe for a couple of you this will be the first time. Controvertible Snitch is an interesting guy. He has very sincere emotional reactions to what's going on in vegan activism, the digital vegan demimonde, and I think that's really worthwhile. A lot of my content also is not intellectual or political, but is emotional, is addressed to the emotional reality of what we're doing, the emotional consequence of what we're doing for the people involved, the emotional struggle to be a vegan trying to make a difference in the world. Lately, this guy, Controvertible Snitch, great screen name. I'm not insulting him if I call him Snitch. He reflected on the extent to which being a sincere vegan has become something that other vegans ridicule. And just recently, I mean, it wasn't like that even 1 year ago, that people would be ridiculed for saying that they're actually trying to make a positive difference, that they're actually trying to help the animals. And guys like Joe Vegan, even if they have good intentions, they really are part of that problem. And I do think Joe Vegan is very different from someone like Vegan Cheetah. I do think he's very different from someone like Durian Rider. I do think morally and ethically he has scruples that many other YouTubers don't have. And I think in many ways he wants to make a positive difference in the world. He wants to open an animal shelter and what have you. But nevertheless, I myself have really witnessed the emotional and practical and political impact that the games he's playing have on me and have on others. And again, he's the last straw. It's not that he's the worst straw, but for me this was really the breaking point where I said, okay, I'm not cooperating at all anymore. I'm not even going to have the comment section on my channel. I'm going to step back and really have to reconsider how I use YouTube as a broadcasting medium, given that these are the games that you people play. So in Joe Vegan's case, it is significant to me that he continued laughing at me, he continued ridiculing me and my sincerity. And I do not mean when he's playing a fictional character, I don't mean in a scripted sketch, I mean in his live streams when he's speaking for himself, when he's stating his own opinion. He continued to pretend that he had no way of contacting me or no way of knowing the facts from me, and that he really was uncertain whether or not my legal case in Thailand was valid or invalid, whether it was a scam or not, whether it was real or unreal. And he ridiculed my sincerity for having sent him long emails about the fact. So this is a guy who I've tried to cooperate with, someone who I'm looking to in the long-term future, build bridges with, build a basis for real activism, for real political cooperation. And when I hear him saying on the internet that he doesn't believe something in my story is legit or true, yes, in the past I have sent him long emails. That shows my sincerity of wanting to address those facts. And many of these questions are not questions you can write a short email about. So to give you an answer, one that people used to ask all the time, and that I believe at some point Joe Vegan asked and I sent him an email about, one of the questions of the past was, why was I in Chiang Mai at that time at all? Chiang Mai, Thailand. Why did I go to this city in Thailand at that time at all? Now I can just send you a 2-sentence email saying I was in Chiang Mai for totally legitimate reasons that have nothing to do with Durian Rider. I could just say that. That would be a short email, and I think nobody would believe it. And, well, okay, it's not that people wouldn't believe it. People would ask for proof, or people would raise an eyebrow or say, what does this really mean? Doesn't make sense, doesn't really answer the question. Now, by contrast, the emails I've sent to people on that, and many people have received with a different intro addressed to them, the same email where I say, hi, I'm going to answer your question, and then I cut and paste a long answer. I've got to get into why did I arrive at the time I arrived? Why did I leave when I left? Why did what were the actual things I had to get done in Chiang Mai? What was I doing with my time in Chiang Mai before Durian Rider attacked me and created this conflict? How short can that email be? if I actually break down for you what was going on in my life, why I did the things I did, and what was going on. Now, on the other hand, the people who have received a long email like that and actually read it, every single one of them, none of them has ever written back to me asking for proof or saying that they don't believe me. The details, although they're boring, they really do provide an explanation. They really make sense. This is exactly why I had to go to Chiang Mai at that time, or why I chose to, rather than going to Vietnam or something, where I don't speak the language. I don't speak Vietnamese. It's like, yes, in theory, there were other options, but, like among the boring details there was that I needed to go to a hospital and get medical documents from that hospital to give to the Chinese government for paperwork reasons. I have never once had someone read my explanation of that this is one of the main reasons why I was in Chiang Mai. This is something I was going to... I've never once had someone read that explanation and write back to me saying, well, show me the paperwork. I don't believe you. Never once, because it's a very obviously honest, forthcoming explanation that makes sense. Is it a long email? Yes. But it's part of me actually being very sincere and forthcoming. And ultimately, I am doing it for the animals, for the movement, to make the world a better place. If someone like Joe Vegan really doesn't understand something like that, and I have some level of trust with him or some level of respect for him, I'm going to be forthcoming with that. And in fact, I have done that for many, many channels and many, many YouTubers who I don't trust, who I don't respect, and who have seriously insulted me and defamed me on YouTube again and again. I've tried to build bridges and reach out to people who've been just horrendously insulting and defamatory towards me for the movement, for the future of this thing we call veganism. Yes, for the animals. Yes, for ecology, to save the planet, however you want to put it. That's what's going on with me. That's very sincere. So if anyone in the world should not... Again, it's not that Joe Vegan is the worst. In many ways, he's the best. I made such an effort with him to address his concerns, and I was willing to share with him private information also, not just stuff that's on YouTube. So about the court case in Thailand, well, ages ago, a couple months ago, I was forthcoming. I've reminded that of him now. We have talked about this privately. I said, look, I showed you screenshots of the contract with the lawyer. I showed you screenshots concerning the bank transfers. That's the money being sent to the lawyer from the charity company. Like, don't act like I never showed you anything. And he didn't even ask me for that. I was just forthcoming out of respect for him. So I've put in a huge level of effort to communicate with him. Yes, in writing long emails and showing that I was also willing, if he was interested, he asked for it, I was willing to show further evidence or private proof if he was interested. Okay? And he's coming on YouTube and mocking me and ridiculing me and laughing at me. And I don't mean in sketches. I mean in live streams when he's speaking for himself, when he's not playing a character, when he's not acting out a role. And he's mocking me specifically because I would send him these long emails, that I would send him these explanations. And he's still behaving as if, one, there's something shady or mysterious or evasive about my conduct in this, and two, as if he doesn't have access to them, as if he doesn't already know these things as facts, as if he couldn't ask me or check with me if he wanted to know. And those things are very fundamentally similar to other people on YouTube running drama channels or making the scene worse and worse. The final outcome of this, as Controvertible Snitch says, it's making people defensive. It's making people ashamed to be sincerely pursuing the goals of veganism. And it actually fucks up real-world activism and organizing real events. Just a couple of months ago, I had the optimism, the reckless optimism, to try to commit my time and money to organizing an event in Thailand where I would meet other vegan activists face-to-face, including Joe Vegan. I wanted to invite him, and I did. I shared it with him at the planning stage. I said, look, I know you have a baby on the way. At that time, his wife was still pregnant. But, what do you think about coming to Thailand? Or would you come to it if it was somewhere other than Thailand? Because at an early stage, we didn't know where we would hold this. Can we organize an event where these people meet face-to-face, etc., etc.? Today, that would never happen. Just a couple of months later, the level of optimism and love necessary to cooperate with a couple of other vegans online to accomplish a small project like that, a small goal, it's now unthinkable. I'm not going to do it. I'm never going to try again. I'm never going to reach out to Joe Vegan himself that way again. I'm never going to reach out to Vegan Cheetah that way again. I'm not going to do it. That's been destroyed. Now, again, Joe Vegan as an example, he's not trying to do something destructive, but I've really tried to explain to him these are the destructive outcomes of what you're doing. If you get on camera and laugh at me, because when you asked a question that may be a valid question, like, why were you really in Chiang Mai at that time? Or is this legal case really happening? If you ask that question, and I send you long emails, I send you evidence, and I show I'm offering to talk to you by Skype or by email, whatever you want, I don't care, by telephone, doesn't matter. I'm willing to talk to you. And you ignore that, and you go with the fiction that I'm somehow being evasive, I'm somehow being dishonest or not forthcoming. You depict me as if I'm the one lying to the public, and you laugh about it. You make a joke out of my sincerity, my sincere concern that you've misunderstood what I'm doing. And again, my long-term interest in organizing things. Yes, it really does destroy the level of optimism and trust necessary just to organize an event like that. Now, I mentioned, many people complain when I make this kind of video, oh, well, why didn't you discuss it privately? Joe and I have discussed this privately, and it's a private conversation, so I'm not going to quote anything he said, or, the nature of it is a private conversation. And now I'm making a public statement about why comments are turned off on my channel, basically, and why I'm really changing the way I use YouTube and the way I try to instigate real-world activism. At one point in that conversation, so I'm just going to quote what I said, I'm not going to quote or represent anything that Joe said. But at one point in that conversation, I used what I thought was a positive phrase. I said, no, Joe, you should expect more. You should expect people like me to do more. And he kind of misunderstood what I was saying. And I then had to reiterate and say, no. He was kind of he was just a little bit confused by what I said. He was being a little bit overly humble, because he was saying that, I don't expect you to do that. I don't expect you to make these efforts. He doesn't expect me to do these efforts. I said, no, you should expect more. Like, expecting me to organize an event in Thailand where people meet face-to-face, this is nothing. We should have higher expectations. We should have higher hopes and aspirations to organize real-world events. And nobody has these expectations. People just expect each other to fling dirt and insults and defamation and laugh and try to make a few dollars out of it on YouTube. Incredibly low. But you should expect more of me, and we should all expect more of each other as individuals and collectively. And I used an example. I've given many, many examples of very modest forms of activism that I've tried to initiate here on YouTube. Right now, I have written a children's book about veganism, about the ethics of veganism. I've written a children's book in both Chinese and English. I wrote it in Chinese. I checked with my teacher, got the Chinese corrected, translated the Chinese English. I would love to find an illustrator and publish that children's book, and I might have to do a Kickstarter. I might have to do fundraising to get money for the illustrator. A very modest form of activism. I used another example in that conversation with Joe, where I said to him, I went to various vegans with this idea of having 5 or 10 vegan restaurant owners get together. So you can call that a conference. Conference would be too fancy a term. But in different countries, to get together to talk about why they opened a vegan restaurant in the first place, and to talk about the future. Both their own worries about the future of running a vegan restaurant, and positively what they can plan or pursue, what outcomes they're looking for in the future of veganism, from the perspective of, even if it's just 5 vegan restaurant owners. And for me, that's especially interesting in a place like Taiwan. Get a translator, have them meet in Chinese, film it for YouTube, but then, you're going to have to take segments and translate Chinese into English. It would be especially interesting, frankly, in a place like Sri Lanka, but also in Israel. If you could get together 5 or 10 Israeli vegan restaurant, Israeli people who became vegan and then decided they're so committed they're going to own and operate a vegan restaurant, I think they'd be really interesting to people. I have no idea. I've never been to Israel. I have no connection to Israel. I think it would be really interesting to get their perspective on veganism in Israel, or veganism in Taiwan, or veganism in Sri Lanka. To me, that would be such an amazing project, and it is activism, but it's a very humble, very down-to-earth form of activism. And when I've talked to other vegans on YouTube about something like that, about getting 5 restaurant owners together from the same country, I mean, you could do it within Canada, could be Taiwan, could be Israel. They act like this is an insurmountable, impossible obstacle. And a lot of these people do put in long, hard hours into making YouTube videos or doing the social media things that they do. But something that modest, getting an illustrator for a book, getting a conference together. In the past, I've talked about a conference of scientists, involved with laboratory research on animals who are vegan or vegetarian, or support veganism, about the ethics of how animals are exploited in labs. Yes, actually, I'm encouraging you watching this video, I'm also encouraging you, vegan, don't make excuses for how bad and counterproductive the scene is here on YouTube. Let's raise our expectations, let's expect more, in effect, he should expect more of me. He should expect me to be out there organizing events related to activism, or just people meeting, because again, it's just barely activism, whether it's restaurant owners or YouTubers or whatever, to make something positive happen. But what I'm trying to communicate to him is that what he's doing actually is destroying that potential. Like, it's actually a problem for me in my real life right now. And and like I say, the basic optimism that was required to have what's not a very deep or difficult event of getting a bunch of vegan YouTubers to meet face to face this December. Today, that is completely unthinkable to me. I wouldn't make that effort today. I wouldn't even try. Whereas I did try just a couple of months ago, and I did try to involve someone like Joe Vegan himself positively in that effort. Obviously, he's got a newborn baby. Different people, when I reached out to them, some were immediately eager and really wanted to do it, like Vegan Lass, shout out to her, like so many other people. And other people had reasons why they wanted to keep their distance or didn't want to be involved. So coming back to what Controvertible Snitch said in the first place, we really have a problem with shaming people for their sincerity. Whether that is me sending long emails with explanations to someone like Joe Vegan. I shouldn't be made ashamed of that. Joe Vegan, if you've said openly on your channel that you just don't know why I went to Chiang Mai, or you just don't know if you can trust what I say about my legal case, and I write to you saying, look, if you have doubts, I'm willing to respect your doubts. I'm willing to send you real information. In either case, what I was doing there, what my situation with my lawyer, I'm being forthcoming and honest. And then you are going to pretend that I'm not, that I'm being somehow dishonest or evasive. And you're going to laugh about it. You're going to ridicule me. Again, not in the scripted comedy, in his live stream when he's really speaking for himself. Shame on you. And, think about what the rewards have been for my sincerity. Because that legal case, it's not for me. It's really not. It doesn't benefit me. It really is, as I've said on this channel a million times, it really is about the future of veganism. It really is about violence and defamation and dignity, about this movement trying to have a shred of dignity. And a couple of months ago, I felt like the main problem we had was a small number of people like Durian Rider taking the name and idea of veganism and dragging it through the mud and depriving it of its dignity. And today, I feel like 1,000 people are doing that, including Joe Vegan. And I know that Joe Vegan has good intentions. I think many of these people have good intentions, whether it's to open an animal sanctuary or other kinds of save the planet, real world activism. But yes, what Joe Vegan is doing in general, and even what he's done to me, in the final analysis, it does have some of the same negative consequences of what I've complained about with Harley in the past. It is taking the name of veganism and dragging it through the mud. And it does leave people like me in a very difficult position of saying, how am I going to make something positive happen? So this video has been long enough. I guess I'll make a separate video about why comments are off and how now, today, in a slightly different way, I am still going to try to reach out and cooperate with other vegans, but I am changing the rules of the games that I play.